Everybody, welcome back to the zone. Today I have Jerome. I just gave him a call sign, the Bone Maldonado. He is a real estate investor, business entrepreneur, developer, but most importantly, this is about life. This is about going from rags to riches, how to use the lessons in life to make it. Also, we talk about, by the way, in the end, good debt and bad debt, which is really critical for what's going on in the world today with the economy, with inflation, pending recession. This is really important stuff. But the reason I think it was a powerful podcast is the information by you connecting to someone's heart. And we connect the heart and the head. Jerome is an incredible entrepreneur. We have so much to learn from. This is about belief levels. This is about faith. This is about making a difference in people's lives and how to live life. I like to say live life in all its fullness. Okay, Jerome and Gucci, ready? Hit it. Everybody, Jerome and Gucci in the house. Jerome, we're going to get you a call sign by the end of this podcast. But first off, maybe you already have one. Welcome to the High Performance Zone. I can't wait to unpack what you've done, not only in the real estate, but really in life as a business entrepreneur. So first off, thanks for being here. And Gucci says, glad to be here. Over to you, man.
Hey, thank you, John. Really appreciate you, Gucci. Thanks for having me. And thank you to all you listeners that are gracious enough to give us your time to listen to us crazy guys talk today.
Yeah. Hey, Jerome, I see, man, you got a tattoo on your big damn arms, man. You got some serious pumped arms there. What is that tattoo and why do you have it?
You know what? I got a couple of them. This one, I got one on this arm, which is my last name. We branded ourselves. My dad said when we were in high school, we all turned 18. Me and a bunch of cousins went, all of us, we turned 18 and got our last names tattooed in our arms. And we grew up farming and cattle and ranching. He goes, that's what we do to the cows. He goes, you guys just branded yourselves like cows, you know? And so, this other one I got with my wife one day, and I was going to do more. And it was after I felt like I was rich, right? Like I'd made couple $1 million back in the early 2000s. And I said, I can go do whatever. I'm been in a suit my whole life. I don't care. This was the beginning of that. And then I think the recession hit and I was like, shit, I better humble myself back up and I better get my ass back to work. And so I stopped with the tattoos, and that's when it started and that's where it ended.
Man, I love that. I had no idea, but the idea of branding yourself, your dad, that's pretty cool. Hey, let's unpack your background because, for everybody knows, Jerome is just kicking it as a business entrepreneur, created, great companies, but most importantly, with your domination, that real estate domination, which is coming up, right? I'm more curious right now with, well, how'd you get there? How do you go from really nothing to riches? And I don't mean just riches in money, but in your life, right? So what's your story? Give me a little background.
So there's a lot of pieces to that, right? As a kid, I think all of us aspire to be more. I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic Catholic family. My parents came from what I would consider to be poverty. And I think they would too, although they hate saying that because I think they were rich in life. They came from really strong families.
Yes.
And so they always had, and when I say they always had food on the table, but it wasn't through the means of financial means. In fact, my mom's family, they would literally poach animals, deer and so forth to have enough meat.
Where were you living? Where was that?
Well, they lived in a small town called Torreon, New Mexico. It's in New Mexico, and it was a small town. My mom came from a family of 11 kids, and her dad passed away when she was 5. My grandfather. Whoa. And so my grandma was stuck working at a post office as a government employee in a little tiny small town with a population of probably under 1,000 people at a post office. And so not very affluent. And my oldest uncle was in the military and was sending his checks home just to help feed them. And the older brothers would literally poach animals to just get enough meat to get through the winter. And as crazy as that sounds, that was like the truth of the way my mom grew up. When they were 18, they shuttled them into Albuquerque on a bus with a suitcase and told them to get to work. And that was their introduction to adulthood. So there was no fluff in my mom's upbringing, and my dad either. My dad grew up in a family He hates when I tell this story, by the way. So, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So I think it's important, right? And as much as he hates it, I'm blessed to have both my parents still in their 70s, but still blessed to have both of them. And so my dad grew up in a family where his dad was an alcoholic. My brother also battled alcoholism and has been sober for 16 years, but it's a genetic thing and people don't know that. And so there's a gene in your body and your DNA. And anyways, my dad grew up in that type of environment and came from a broken home, had to leave home at 16, didn't graduate high school, had to come back. And when he met my mom, he got his GED and then went to college later. But my dad was the father figure in his house in a family of 5 other kids, so 6 total. And he just had to go fight it for himself at a very young age. And he was subjected to probably a little bit of verbal and physical abuse from his stepfather and some other stuff. And so I don't know the stories there. He hasn't even ever told me those stories, right? It's just from stories that we've had. So I'm proud of my parents because they went through the traditional means of get a job, go get a job, get educated and work. And my dad worked as an accountant for 32 years. My mom started in bookkeeping, started really driving school buses and working at Levi Strauss in the factories when we were babies. In fact, I still have a scar where she wrecked a school bus when I was 3 years old, and I went under the seat and cut my face under the springs of the seat of the school bus when I was a kid. And she then she got a job as a bookkeeper, and from a bookkeeper, she's a hustler, that lady. I love that woman because she has advocated for me my whole life, and I'll tell you that she went from that to building nonprofit organizations as the executive director of some of the most renowned nonprofit organizations in the state of New Mexico, went and opened up chapters in Connecticut. And she's a fighter. She's still working every day to day. So I get a lot of that stuff from her and my dad.
Well, you know what? I mean, I don't want to cut you off too much right now, but I just want to say it now is putting some context into what you've been able to accomplish in your life. And it comes from that upbringing, man. Now, how did that, as you were growing up, how did that motivate you?
I don't know if motivation is the right word, right? Okay. I think it was expectations. Because I think all of us individually have to self-motivate ourselves to a certain degree. I think there's role models, and people call them mentors, role models in our lives that set standards for us. Yep. And it was those standards that my parents set for us, which we really didn't have any control over, right? Like I didn't have control over the standards my parents gave to us. It was just standards they felt were normal. And I think sometimes, and they both may mention that, I think they were a little extreme on certain standards at certain points in time. And
like what? Give me an example. What standard did they go extreme on? Was it honesty? Was it accountability? Was it something else?
No, and it is. And I mean, stuff that I feel that they were extreme. I think they feel like they were extreme with it. And I look back now and I think, were they really that extreme? I'm grateful for how intense they were now when I look back. And I wish that I myself was that structured with my kids. I have a hard time being that demanding out of my own kids. They're spoiled, man. And I think that's where we lose a little bit of this as well. I think I'm doing a disservice sometimes to my own children. But I mean, my parents would do stuff where, I mean, every Saturday was cleaning day, and it wasn't just like an average cleaning day. Like, I mean, the work ethic that you see was like, I mean, we would get butter knives and, you know, the grooves on the cabinets where you have like the grooves on your kitchen cabinets. We would literally go through them with a butter knife and a towel, and we'd be cleaning in every single groove. And this was weekly. And it's just, you know, there's just little things like that. The yard work, our yard was always pristine. We had an acre of grass, no driving lawnmower. And I mowed it with a hand push mower, and we flood irrigated. So you go 5 feet, you get clogged. I had a green pair of shoes and green arms from my fingertips to my forearm, where I stick it in there, and I was pulling grass out. And by no exaggeration, it was like that every single Saturday, and I couldn't go out and play. So I call my cousins, like, hey, come help me mow the lawns, and we'll go ride skateboards, and we'll go ride BMX bikes afterwards. And we'll do it fast. So 4 hours fast later, we were out riding skateboards, and we were sun beaten and beat up. And all we wanted to do was eat a popsicle and hang out, right? So, but anyways, we lived outside, and there's a lot of gratitude now that I have for that upbringing that I had then.
Wow. You know, it thinks back to my childhood too. The idea of, you know, having a task, mow the lawn. And I remember that my dad eventually bought me one of those mowers. You remember that on the front wheels, it helped you push the thing, you know? And
Yeah.
I remember that he thought he was helping me with that. And I was working out for sports. So I would never use that. I would just push the damn thing by itself just because I wanted the exercise, and getting that grass out and the bags, you know, and that was what a pain in the ass. But look at the values that taught. And I can see it in you. How did you use that in starting your first companies? You know, I mean, you've done some amazing things. I want to pivot back to your upbringing, but I want to kind of now go forward to what are you doing now? And then our audience will go, oh, I'm starting to see the connection, right? So what are you doing now?
So now we're doing a lot of ground up development in the multifamily space. We're hyper focused on the affordable housing model, not low income model, but the affordable housing model in the multifamily sector. So we're really specializing on assets in excess of 100 units and above, and we're doing ground up development. And we're building
ground up development. You actually getting it permitted and building them, or you buy units that are already there?
No, we're buying dirt. We're buying dirt, and we're entitling the dirt. We're going ground up from concrete foundations all the way vertical, and we build and hold.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been in the construction trade since 1998. Got into it on accident, and truly by accident in 1998. Never thought I'd be there in construction. I honestly never really did, and I became good at it. I became great at business. I shouldn't say I became great at business before that. I was in direct sales and multi-level marketing. I started in 1993, and I learned a little bit about.
Who'd you start with?
A company called Equinox International. We were selling water filters back in. If you guys remember the old PVC filters from NSA, the little PVC ones with a little spout. So Bill, the founder, he was the top money earner of NSA, and he spun off and created a company called Equinox International. We were the fastest growing privately held company in American history in 1995, and we were on the cover of Inc. 500. And we went from $0 to $500 million in 5 years. And I was part of that growth. And I was one of the trainers up with the company in the 90s, and I was in my young 20s, just wet behind the ears and vulnerable. And I hook, line, and sinker, I bought it. I drank the Kool-Aid, and it was probably the best Kool-Aid I ever drank, because it really led me to where I am today. The foundation that was built with me mentally.
Let's unpack some of that, because multi-level marketing has different thoughts, right? What's the key to that? What did you learn from that experience?
Well, you learn a little bit about the value of consistency. That's one.
Okay.
And you learn a lot about the value of longevity in that consistency, about not quitting. You also learn a lot of marketing skills. You learn a lot of people skills. And you learn a lot about resilience in creating thick skin for yourself because of rejection, right? Which is part of life. And I think those fundamentals are pinnacle in business. And there's success principles through third-party literature that I was introduced to that I was never introduced to prior. So mentors through the means of books and individuals that gave me success principles that I had never been taught. Was never introduced to. It was a whole different concept of life that was introduced to me at a very young age, and very, very grateful that it was.
Yeah, what a blessing to get introduced to that at that age. Give me a couple of those success principles that you still remember.
Well, it's stuff that I still use today, right? I mean, it's stuff that I still scale with. One of them is utilizing the efforts of other people to become successful, finding people better than me at stuff that I'm not good at. And there's a lot I'm not good at. And so finding those people to position them right, I've become good at delegation and putting people in place to make me better, because there's a lot I'm not good at. And because of that, I think we all fall short in a lot of areas. People watching this, you fall short, I fall short, we all do. And so,
hey, well, I love the humility you have right now, and it's not just right now. You have it. I can feel it in you, right? And it's probably one of the keys to your success, right? That idea of being open and honest and vulnerable. I always like to say there's strength in vulnerability.
Yeah, there is. There is. And you got to watch when and how you're vulnerable to certain people and aspects in life, right? Like there's a level of confidence you have to carry yourself with, because there's a fighting tiger in each one of us that we have to present ourselves in business. But there's also a vulnerable state that we have to take as well in order for us to push forward, because that fire and that tiger is very discouraging to a lot of people. When you're negotiating deals, you're fighting to get ahead. And so you got to know when to turn it on and turn it off. And sometimes I'll tell you, there's sometimes that I'm bad at turning it off, So, finding that balance is one of the tougher things to do.
Hey, do you have a nickname yet? What do people call you?
Bro, I've been called everything.
Yeah.
I've been called everything under the sun. No, I don't know that I have a nickname per se. I think I'm known for a lot of different stuff, but I don't know that I have a nickname per se.
I think the reason I ask you is, we talked about call signs on the Blue Angels, and you get them. And here's the key: is you don't usually get to pick them, but you earn them, right? And your buddies will tell you what they think of you. And sometimes you don't like the nickname, right? Sometimes that call sign you don't like my call sign is Gucci, and I hated it. Okay. The minute I got that call sign, I'm like, no, because no fighter pilot wants Gucci, and but it's stuck. Well, I got a nickname for you now, call sign. I think you just nailed it as Tiger. And the reason I picked Tiger is my dad used to call me Tiger as a kid. He'd call me Tiger, he'd call me Champ. He was trying to I think plant good seeds in my mind. But the reason that I want to call you Tiger is I can feel it, man. I can feel the fire. I can feel the energy in you. And with that, Tiger, comes the wisdom of what you just said, of knowing how to balance that, right? So I don't know. Do you like Tiger? I hope not, because if you do, it might not stick.
I'll take it, Gucci. I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take it.
We'll see if we get another one by the end of the podcast. We'll see if you say something stupid, because if you do, then I'll know you.
Oh man, we'll get another one for sure, because I'm sure I'm going to say more than one thing stupid between now and the end of this thing.
I love it. I love it. Hey, but we were on to something really powerful there. Those fundamentals, those lessons that you learned, and applying those, right? So let's keep going, because I think as we unpack your journey, all these lessons are going to come out. So that was your first company, right? And you're young, you're kicking ass, you're learning, right? You're growing. I think, I can feel the energy there. Give me some mistakes you made in that time frame, and what'd you learn from them?
Yeah. So the first 2.5 years were 100% mistakes. I didn't make no money for 2.5 years, ruined my credit, was just trying to make it. I've dug myself into such a deep hole in the first 2.5 years of direct sales that I was over $100,000 in debt in the early 90s. That's like $1 million in debt. Imagine being 21 years old and $1 million in debt right now.
Whoa.
And not knowing how the hell you're going to get out of that. You feel
why are you in debt with direct sales?
Well, we were building training centers. So what we were doing was I was signing leases at a young age, building training centers where I was putting sales reps in them. And so I had training centers all over. And I'd go to Best Buy back in the day and Circuit City, and I get lines of credit to put in audio equipment and all that. And then I go to like Aaron's Rents and sign for furniture to lease to pack my offices. And I was getting credit cards, and there was months I couldn't afford rent, and my offices weren't producing, and I was stealing from Peter to pay Paul.
Yep.
And 1 month after another, $5,000 here, $10,000 there. It goes fast, really fast. And so
I know the feeling. I actually tried to create a company after I got out of Stanford Business School. It's called Centerpoint Entertainment. We're going to be the NASCAR of aviation, but I didn't get any other investors, right? I just bootstrapped it, and I was 270 something, or maybe more than that, $1,000 in debt on credit cards back when it was 18 to 25%. Remember what we were paying on those credit cards? And the deal never happened. It blew up at 9/11. So I know what you mean. When it's not even being bankrupt, it's less than bankrupt. You're negative, right? And I'm not going to claim bankruptcy. I'm going to work my ass out of that hole, which I did. But tell me about you. So you're right on the edge there.
Yeah. So, and I did too. Thank God. So there's a breaking point that each one of us has. And I think most of us break before that breaking point. I had hit multiple breaking points before I got to a point where I hit my true breaking point. And when I say breaking points, I mean, when you can't afford to put gas in your car, you can't afford to buy groceries to eat. I literally was living off of bags of beans that I put in a crock pot, and I'd go to continental breakfasts at every hotel that I knew on my way to the office, because and I hit different ones each day of the week to get my continental breakfast for free, right? And I did. That's just the means I had to take to make it. And and I was literally like, when you hear that, it wasn't like a 1 day thing or a 2 day thing. I mean, this was like my life. Sleeping on people's couches. I'd go into their cupboards and get peanut butter and just say, oh, they won't know I took a tablespoon of peanut butter from them. I mean, it was to that extreme when I was really trying to make it. And you hit breaking points mentally. And so when I say you hit breaking points, they're not financial breaking points. They're mental breaking points where you're like, man, did I make the right decision? How did I get myself here? How did I dig myself into this hole? How am I going to dig myself out of this hole? And this is stuff that I think a lot of listeners may have went through or maybe are going through. Yeah. And you just don't really know how you're going to get there. And my breaking point was one night. I was in El Paso, Texas. I had an office right off of Yarborough and Vista del Sol, for anybody who knows El Paso. And I was at a point where I had an office in Virginia, one in Albuquerque, and I was just stressed out of my life. I couldn't even afford to take a girl on a date. I felt like a failure because I wanted to take a girl on a date, and I couldn't even afford to take her to a dollar movie if I wanted to, in all honesty. And I sat back and go, damn, how did I get myself here? And I had been working. And I had adamantly been working, like not like just kind of pretending like I was working. I was showing up, putting in the time, and I was working, and I just hadn't figured it out. And I was at a breaking point, that place where in time where I remember that it was a weekend and it was a Saturday night, and I walked down to a school, and by the school was a church. And outside of that church, it was like 11 o'clock at night. I had a little Volkswagen Bug, and half the motor was inoperable, so it was running on like 2 cylinders, and so it was dropping oil. I was going, damn, how am I going to fix this? And I didn't even have a vehicle to get to the office. Right, I was walking to the office, and so nonetheless, I was depressed a little bit. I don't battle from depression or mental health issues. At least I don't think I do. My wife might tell you that I do sometimes. There's mental health issues that I'm a little crazy, but outside of that, I don't truly battle from depression or anything like that. And I thank God, because I know a lot of people do battle from that stuff. Yeah. And so I walk down to this church, and I find myself outside in front of the Virgin Mary statue, and I sit down and I pray. And I cried that night like a baby. And I was like, and I just asked God that night. I said, God, give me a bone, was my words to him. Just give me a bone. I don't know what else to do. I'm putting in the time, I'm working, I'm going to trainings, I'm doing everything I can. I'm in there, I'm on the phone, I'm pounding it out. I got 2 phones that I can't even afford to pay for, ads in the paper. I'm pounding it out. I'm putting in my time. I'm not going to lunch. I'm showing up early. I'm leaving late. And I'm putting more time than anybody, and I still not making it. Give me a bone, God. I don't even know what else more I can physically do to make it, And I think I got so angry at myself that night that going, you know what? Screw this, F this. This is it, man. I'm done. I'm sick of babying other people's emotions. I'm sick of babying other people. I was afraid of other people doing what I was doing because of my failures, that I was making my failures. I was keeping other people from their own successes. And it was my mental setbacks that finally, when I got so angry at myself and I said, no more of this bullshit, no more excuse making, that was my turning point, because I went in with a vengeance that next day. And I said, you know what? I'm sick of living like this. I'm sick of being broke. I'm sick of the lifestyle. I'm tired of it. I'm not going to quit, but I'm going to make changes. And it was me getting mad at myself and getting mad at my life and where I was at, and not feeling sorry for other people, that I really made that big turn. And that was my big turning point. And from that point forward, I never struggled financially. Now, different ways, we all struggle financially. We all have our downturns, like the economy in 2008. But from that point forward, I never, Gucci, struggled financially. I always made money from that point forward. And it took that, though, that breaking point for me to just get to a place where I was like, you know what? No more. We're moving forward.
Wow. And what did you do? Did you do anything differently once you had that moment there? And by the way, I love that you pray. I believe in prayer. I believe, it's so many stories. Yours is so powerful of when you hit that bottom, what do you really do? Did you do anything differently, or was it more of a belief or a faith in yourself?
A lot of it came down to faith, and it came down, I didn't physically do anything different. I was already doing it. I was doing it. I mean, there was nothing I could change what I was doing physically. What I was doing was the right stuff. I was getting trained, all the stuff that you hear about, because I know there's a lot of people that they go through these motions, right? And they're going, okay, well, this isn't working. It's you. And for all of you guys out there, it's not what you're doing that doesn't work. It's you. You're broken. I was broken. And the problem is life sets us up for failure. As unfair as that seems, life sets us up for failure. Our education systems, our peers, our parents, we're set up to fail, guys. And it's hard to get past that. You're going to do 99% of what you need to be doing. The vehicle that most of you guys are traveling is probably an okay vehicle to create wealth. There's wealth in so many different things. Yeah. It's just that in that vehicle, the driver being you're driving in the wrong direction. And until you can get clarity mentally of where you need to be mentally, until you get to a place where you don't care what other people think, you don't care about where, as long as you're doing it ethically, and these are the standpoints that you have to go by. Are you lying to anybody? Are you cheating from anybody? Are you stealing from anybody? What are your ethical standpoints on stuff? If you can avidly believe and know in your heart genuinely that you yourself are not hurting anybody, you're not doing anything more in your morale that's wrong, you should be successful. And as long as you're driving your vehicle with those in your back seat, those factors in your back seat, you need to stop feeling obligated to whoever you're feeling obligated to, your mom and dad, your brothers and sisters, your friends, your wife, your husband. And you need to know that you need to clear all that. And until you can do all that, and this is loaded, this is like an emotionally loaded for a lot of you guys right now. Some of you guys don't even know what I'm talking about. And I think until you actually live this, you won't know what I'm talking about. And so what I'm telling you is you'll know when you get there, I guess, is the best thing I can tell you, because you're going to get so fed up with where you're at that it doesn't matter what anybody tells you anymore. You don't care. You know that what you're doing is the right direction, and you stop caring what other people think. You'll make it financially. You'll feel better about yourself. You'll feel better about everything that you're doing, because you know genuinely that you're not hurting anybody and that you're supposed to be doing this for you.
Jerome, I think I got another nickname for you, and that's Bone. I'm hearing Bone now come out. But here's what's more important. What I'm hearing is your very vivid story about really what philosophy, what religions, and I'm not trying to put religion with a quote, this idea of morality and ethics. And if you live a moral and ethical life, you're planting seeds, in my belief, that will ripen. And what you just said, if you're cheating or lying or stealing, even in a little way, you're watching yourself do that. So you can't hide from it, right? And I believe that the world's coming from us, not at us. So what you just said, got to take responsibility, right? It's me, right? I mean, and both you're good and you're bad. And so this is so cool, because that story, I was just listening to a webinar, and it was about exactly what you're talking about, is this idea of doing the right thing. All right. Planting the seeds and then watching them garden. It's like a garden, right? Watching them grow. So talk to me about how your seeds grew. Because now you're with me, right? I'm with you. I'm down in the hole, and then bam, what happened?
So at that point, I remember getting a phone call, and I was thinking of going to Jacksonville, Florida, to open up an office. Okay. So 30 days goes by. I land up putting in enough work to get a $6,000 check. I'm hyped. My car was broken. I went back. I picked up a little Nissan pickup truck. $4,000 I paid for that truck. and I drove the hell out of that truck, man. I mean, I was worth, became a millionaire in that truck. I bought that little tiny truck, and through all my growth, I bought Range Rovers and other vehicles. And for some reason, I kept this little black Nissan pickup truck. It was a little 4-cylinder truck, 4-speed manual transmission, and I drove the hell out of that thing. I drove that thing up I-10 from Long Beach, California to Jacksonville, Florida, and everywhere in between. From San Antonio on I-10, I drove the hell out of that thing back and forth up to Kansas City on 17, all the way up to Virginia. And I'd hit my offices from El Paso to Jacksonville. It's from El Paso to San Antonio to Jacksonville, Jacksonville to up to Virginia, Virginia down. And I drove that thing up and down this country. And I'll tell you that I got a phone call before I went to Jacksonville. So before I got to Jacksonville, I had a pit stop in San Antonio. And it wasn't a mentor. It was a gentleman that became one of my closest and dearest friends, who I'm still friends with today. And he was one of the top money earners in the company. And he had heard good things about me only because of my work ethic, not because of my revenue, and not because of who I was, not because of where I was financially, but because of who I was as a person. The gentleman who brought me into the company, his name was Dale. He said, "Hey, I got a distributor. He's a badass. He should go work with you in San Antonio." And I was being persistent, going, I'm going to go to open up my own office in Jacksonville. And Darren called me. He goes, "Jerome, I hear you're going to Jacksonville to open up an office." And he goes, but you were considering San Antonio. And I said, "Yeah, but there's too much leadership in San Antonio." And he goes, "Well, I'll tell you this. You can go to Jacksonville if you want, but if you don't come to San Antonio, it's going to be the worst decision you've ever made." Boom, hung up the phone on me. Click. And I was like, shit. And he took my temperature. And so I called up Dale, and I go, "Dale," I go, "Bro, Darren just called me." And to have a call from like Darren, one of the top winners, was like, one of the biggest badasses just called you, and then he hung up on you. So you got to think about my temperature in my body. It's like, fuck, like you're thinking about this. And he goes, "Well, what do you think? You going to go to San Antonio? You're going to go to Jacksonville?" And I go, "I don't know." And he goes, "Well, I'll tell you this. If you go to San Antonio, kick everyone's ass before you get to Jacksonville." And then he hung up on me, and that was it. What? And so then I called up Angie, who's a good friend of mine. She's the one that brought me into the business. I go, "Angie, what'd you think?" She goes, "Go to San Antonio and kick his ass." And I said, "All right, that's what I'm going to do." And so I go to San Antonio. I open up an office with Darren. We're building desks from Walmart, and we've created a great relationship. And one of my closest friends, Rick, who he actually works with me now, and so we create this little alliance of friends. And we were all competitors in the same market. And bought this little trophy, and it was a little glass trophy, like one that you would get at the Oscar Awards. And he goes, "Okay, guys, this is our volume trophy. Whoever does the most sales volume every month, this sits on their desk." And the second I saw that trophy, I said, "Shit, that thing's never leaving my desk." And so I was there. I was in San Antonio for 6 months before I moved to Jacksonville to open up my office. And that trophy sat on my desk for 5 of the 6 months. The last month I was there, I lost the trophy. I lost that trophy to my top money earner. It went from my desk to one of my distributors' desks. Nice. And when I went to the desk, I knew it was time for me to leave. And I said, you sit on the throne. I'm moving to Jacksonville. And so I went in and I kicked everybody's ass. I still tell them this story every day. Every time I'm with them, I tell them, "I whooped your guys' ass. Shut up. You guys ain't it." And so I still bust their balls about that every time we're all together. But nonetheless, that success was huge for me because it made me understand that I can. And that little bit of success, I've now put it into a driving force where I was winning all the awards. I was getting flown out to go do marlin fishing up in the Panama Canal. And I was going to Hawaii and doing celebrity golf tournaments. And that was pivotal in my life. I was able to be around people that I never in my life thought I'd be able to be around. And I was doing stuff with Ted Danson. I was doing stuff with Kenny Loggins. I was doing stuff with some of the, at that time, some of the most decorated celebrities that were out there. Dave Parker with the Dave Parker Foundation, baseball player. So we were doing stuff with all these people. And so it opened up my mind that I myself, as this young kid from the other side of the train tracks, could be around some of the most decorated celebrities in the world. And that does something to you, puts you in a place where you go, I'm part of this. Like I'm a piece of this. I deserve to be here. I created this. And so in 1997, when the FTC shut us down and we went to zero, that was a big move for me. we felt like we failed, but in spite of all our success. And so I had 2 strong years of success, but then that happened. And if I found myself back in college, I was in pharmacy school pre-equinox, and I was 3 years into the program, and I had 1 full year left, 3 semesters, 1 full year. And so I could go back and spend 3 years trying to finish up my degree, or go back to the University of New Mexico, where I was wrestling back at that time. And I landed up going back and just finishing that 1 year of school. And I was moonlighting between Texas and New Mexico every week. And I had a little sales team I put together in that interim time.
While you're going to college, you're still running a business, right? And you're wrestling. What weight class did you wrestle?
Well, I did that in the early 90s.
Okay.
136 in college back then, but that was back in the early 90s. I wasn't wrestling back in 1997. That was over, but it took me back there just to finish my degree. After everything had happened in direct sales, I was at a place where I was like, okay, now what? Right.
Yeah.
So I got this unfinished degree. I'm not making any money for a short time. I'm exploring options, right? Like now I'm going, okay, well, was this just artificial? Like, was this little piece of my life, just like this little like hiccup in my life for the last 5 years? And now I'm back to the quote unquote reality of going back and working a job. Like, was all this just fake, and you feel like this, so now you're going through all these same emotions you went through back a few years earlier, right? You're going through all this mental stuff again. And so you have more breaking points. And so you go back, and I'm going, okay, well, shit, I don't know. Did I fail? So I go back to school. At least I have this degree to fall back on. And so I go back and I enroll in school. And I wasn't planning on going back, but here's what got me back. My mom and dad don't give me any money for anything, guys. I'll tell you guys, my parents, they put food on the table and roof over my head. That was taking care of you as a kid. You moved out. That was it. You move out. But my mom did something that she never did, and she paid for my tuition. I didn't know this. My sister calls me up and she goes, are you really going to come back to New Mexico and go back to school? Because I was like, I was in denial, right? I was in denial. I'm building this little sales company in Austin, Texas, going door to door and hiring sales reps. And we're producing about 20 grand a month split between 3 of us. And so we're netting out maybe 5 grand a month. It was a huge cut in income at that time, but still okay enough to make a living, right? So we're making a living. We're doing this little sales company, and I'm in denial that I'm going to really be going back to college. So my sister calls me on the Friday before I'm supposed to show up that Monday to school. And she tells me, are you really coming back to school? She goes, and she wouldn't tell me that my mom paid for the tuition. I thought I was just enrolled, but tuition hadn't been paid. And so I was like, yeah, I really didn't want to go back. And so Monday rolls around, and my sister's like, she calls me up again. She's like, are you coming back to school? Like, are you flying home? And I said, I don't know. I don't think so. And she goes, mom paid your tuition. And I was like, what? Because I was like way out of character for my parents to pay for anything for us. She goes, yeah, mom really wants you to finish your degree, and she paid your tuition. I think you're going to really disappoint her if you don't come back home. So now guilt kicks in, right? So you have a parent that never pays for anything, and now guilt kicks in. And I'm like, oh shit, So I didn't even want to address the fact that I knew that my mom had paid the tuition. I didn't want to call her. Now I feel this load of bricks on my shoulder.
Right.
And so we had a plane flight that day. I show back up home at I don't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, but I know I'm a couple days late to starting my finishing up my degree, and missed the first couple days of college to finish the first few days of school. And I go back and I go, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to get straight A's. I'd never gotten straight A's in college ever. I was in a different mental state. And I said, if I'm going to make this, I'm not going to waste my time. My time's too valuable. I'm going to go back and I'm going to come after this with a vengeance. And I did. I got straight A's. I took 20 hours a semester to finish, and I did summer school, 2 semesters, and I took 20 hours, 18, 20, and 18. I took 1 semester with 20 hours, 2 semesters with 18 credit hours, and I finished in 1 full calendar year, going to summer school the next summer. I would go to school Monday through Thursday. On Thursday nights, I was on an airplane flying back to Texas, running sales teams, going door to door, knocking on doors. And somewhere in this time frame, I had enough time to still be involved a little bit in network marketing with a company called iLink, where I became a distributor, which was purchased out by a company called Big Planet, which was purchased by New Skin Farm and X, which I'm still a distributor of today. and still get a check from what I did back in the 90s today for my distributorship back then. And I was helping him in 2004 open up China and all kinds of different stuff. So, I mean, I'm doing this. And in all that time, I opened up a little construction company. Somewhere in there, I don't know how, somewhere in there, I opened up a little concrete company to make a little bit more money to put in the stock market. That was my whole thing. I'm going to make $2,000 a month to put that 2,000 in the stock market. So I start doing this, and then I have this idea to build a house in 1999. I buy a piece of land, I build a house, I make like 85 grand on it. And I'm like, damn, this is pretty cool. That turns into buying a building for my equipment, turns into building more houses. And before you know it, by 2001, by 2001, I was just killing it in the construction industry. I was building multiple homes a year. I was running a 7-figure business, pouring concrete. I was bidding jobs that were way too big for my shoes. If you guys have ever been to like Rainforest Cafe, all that decorative rock and stuff in there.
Yeah.
I was one of very few companies across the United States that did that. So I was running crews across the country, doing golf courses, restaurants, hotels, where we were putting that product into all this stuff. And I was just bidding them. I mean, I was just bidding them like what I wouldn't even bid. I would just go, man, if I can get this project and they give it to me and it was I'm going to bid it for $650,000, you know? And I'm like, I think I can do it for 300,000. And I would literally go in there and manage my balls off, and I'd make a $200,000-$300,000 profit. And it was my mindset.
Yes.
It was everything I learned, all of what you guys heard before, to get me to that, to where the whole attitude of I have nothing to lose and everything to gain mentality, and going at it, balls on the wall, not caring what anybody thought, and just really putting in the time and the sweat equity to make it happen. And that took me to where we're at today. And that's how we're doing, 200 units, $100 million developments, raising very little capital. And that's how we got to where we are today, is from that progressively growing over the years. Now, there's a lot of stories in between now where I came from and where we got here today, and a lot of ups and downs, a lot of stuff that's happened between now and then. It wasn't just all glory and fame from there forward. There's a lot of moving pieces to the story between now and then that I can sit here for the next 2 weeks and tell you story after story and still not finish. But that's really what got us to where we're at.
Yeah, amazing, Jerome. Thanks for sharing that, because as you're telling your story, what's going through my head is all the lessons that you had to learn, the overcoming the obstacles and whatnot. But back to the mindset comment you made there at the end. It's mindset followed by hard work, right? By process. I mean, but I think you just said that the mindset is the differentiator, right? What holds is there any fear in your life right now? Anything that's holding you back?
It's a good question. I hate saying no, but I like saying no. The reason I hate saying no is because I think inside there's always a fear in each of us, right? But I think our fears are different. I think my fears are more around the safety and security of my family and my kids.
Yep.
I don't really have fears for myself, is egotistical as that might sound. There's not much that scares me. I know that through faith and hard work, I can get through anything. Deals don't scare me. I know how to bite off stuff with logic now. I didn't know how to do that at one point in time in my life. And I've learned that over time. I've learned how to function on logic over emotion. That's huge. Most people are emotion, their decisions are emotion-based, not logical. I think sometimes I'm too logical and not enough emotion-based. If you ask my wife, I think she'll be the first to tell you that.
Yeah.
So that's something that I have to work harder at nowadays than I used to in the past, because I don't want to say that you become soulless, like you don't have a soul, but you become so strong that I think to other outside people, it feels like you don't have a soul, because you become so strong and so confident in your abilities. And a lot of that is driving off the faith factor, right? Like I look back now, and at times I felt like, oh my God, what if I don't have work tomorrow? That comes from a lack of faith. Like if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you'll have work tomorrow. And so what drives me now is I sit back and I say, damn, God's blessed me for 30 years of success, man. I've had work. There's never been a lack of work. He's always provided, even at times that I wasn't being provided financially, he provided, right? Like I had food, I had a roof somewhere, somehow I had a roof. Some way, somehow I got a car. Some way, somehow I'm here today, right? And I just sit back and I go, I don't worry about work coming in. I don't worry about the next deal. I just know that God's been good. And through that, I know that God's going to continue being good as long as I myself continue doing what I need to do on my end, right?
Yeah,
So,
no, I'm with you. You know, again, philosophically, what you're talking about is this idea of there's no reason to worry. You know, there's lots of teachings about what 99% of the stuff we worry about never really comes to fruition anyhow.
yeah,
Worry doesn't do us any good, right? But you have to have, it's easy to say, hard to do unless you have faith, right? Or belief in
yeah,
something. And what I heard you say is what I call connecting the heart and the head. You know, it's one thing to be up here logic and emotion. You can put it anywhere, not just in the heart, but the idea of connecting those is to me the secret, right? And I heard you saying that, and I'm like you, like my wife tells me a lot of time, hey, you're not present, you know, you're not emotional, because my mind's thinking ahead, right? I'm on to the next deal, right? And I think that's a balance, you know, that's a balance in life. That by balance, I don't mean it's like a teeter-totter 50-50. I mean, you and I are a lot alike, man. We're like going for it, right? And so, but that ability to be aware, how have you learned that? Have you learned that yet? To be aware of yeah, look at, I got it, laughing, go for it.
I'm a work in progress.
Yeah.
I'm a work in progress.
I am too, man. I am too.
Yeah, that's why we're married. I'm glad I have the wife I do. She humbles me a lot, right? She's the one to tell me but you know, it's our 16th wedding anniversary today, by the way, too. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, you know, I mean, I'm a work in progress when it comes to that. You know, I think we're all working on something. But you get to one point where you think you mastered one thing, and just to find out that you're lagging in another. But yeah, I lack in presence sometimes. I have to totally just leave like my phones and everything in the car at dinner sometimes, and be aware that I'm doing it, because if not, I mean, I'm distracted 100% of the time. And so it's important to be aware. It's also important to position yourself with people in your life and recognize them and not resist it. You know, one thing I've learned not to do with my wife is resist when she's telling me this stuff, because when I do, it creates chaos. One, first and foremost, in our house. And two, if I listen sometimes, I learn a lot, and it helps humble where I am, you know. So
give me one example, because I have the same thing. This idea, I'm thinking about even Tai Chi. You know, when energy comes at you, if you resist it, you're going to have, you know, it's energy versus energy. But if you let it kind of go by, or even more importantly, maybe absorb it in a beautiful way. Give me an example, because I struggle with that too. How do you not resist when you don't agree, let's say?
Yeah. So, like, you know, we all know we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing, and is nominal as we may think they are. There's still stuff we know, right? Like, I had been traveling where I was in Miami, then come back, and I'm here for 2 days, and then I'm in, and it doesn't matter if you're traveling with your kids. And then I take off with the family, and we're gone for 2 more days. I don't even remember where we were at. I think we were up in where did we go? And then I came back, and literally 2 days later, I'm in LA for just the day, for 24 hours. And I usually drive to the airport myself, but my wife took me to the airport. She didn't want it. She was like, I don't know why I'm taking you to the airport. And I said, I don't know, just take me, you know, right? And then I called her, I'm in, I landed. She's like, okay, I'll go pick you up. I'm a pain in the ass, right? Like, I should have driven to the airport, because she's driving kids around. And then I get from the airport, she's talking to me, and I knew in the moment, my phone had died, the battery had died. And while I was waiting for it, I plugged it in. I got just enough battery to open up my phone and check, see the 30 friggin' text messages and everything else that had come in on WhatsApp and text and everything else in the moments that my phone had died, between LA and here. And I look at my phone while she's talking to me, and I disregard, like, in a moment, like in a split second, I missed one really important thing that she was saying. And I caught it in the moment, but I was like, oh shit, man, I'm going to pay for that. I know I'm going to pay for that. Right. And I was aware, but I didn't say nothing. And I know she caught it, and I was very aware of it. And it wasn't until I opened my mouth on something different 2 days later that he came back up. And then the moment that I opened my mouth on something with work or bills or something that didn't get paid or some stupid logistical thing that should never come involved with marriage and family does. And then it's like, boom, the walls fall down on you, right? All in that moment. And it's, if you're married, it's happened to every single one of us. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And so you sit back and you just have to take the beating that you well earned and deserved, because you know, as well as whatever they're talking about. And it's when you're not aware, that's when things really get affected bad. Yep. And so you just got to be aware of it, and you got to own it. And I owned it, I owned it. I owned that one. And I was like, damn it, I knew that was coming, Yeah. So work in progress right here,
Deep
still
stuff.
working.
Jerome, like, it's interesting for at least my audience. You haven't mentioned, your real estate, the domination. By the way, I do want to bring it up. Your training programs. I mean, none of that. You've talked about your heart and soul, right? Let's take just a couple minutes, because I want people to know how to, get a hold of you if they want to, because you take these lessons and you're applying them. So talk to me about what you got coming up in the real estate world. Talk to me about your training programs. And let's just start there. Isn't November, you got some big event coming up?
Yeah, this is going to be big. We're putting over $500,000 into the production of this event. It's Real Estate Domination. It's the 4th year we've done it. It's my charity to you guys. And when I say charity, it's not that you guys are charity. It's my giving back, right, of to you guys. It's a no sales event. We're not going to be selling you anything. It's a full value event. It's my gift back to you guys. This is important for you listeners out there that are investors in any sector of investing. We are right now encroaching into probably one of the most important times for you as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as an investor, a real estate professional. I mean, we're seeing high inflation at its highest, probably historical highs of inflation percentages. We're seeing interest rates higher than we've seen in quite some number of years, and we're in a recessionary market, and the labor market is now starting to get affected by it. So my question to every entrepreneur listening is, how do you get through that? Because I've always heard that there's opportunity in recessionary markets, but if you don't know where those opportunities lay and you don't know how to take advantage of them, how do you drive this? How do you drive that forward? How do you be on the winning end as opposed to the losing end, where the mass majority of people are functioning right now on fear economically? And so this year, truly more than ever, this event is important for people to be at, because I have hand selected the lineup, and we've been very methodical about who is on that stage, who is showing up, and how and what they're presenting on. It has to be to help people in this time right now, sharing with them what they themselves are doing to win in this recessionary market, and how they've prevented themselves from going into a compromising position financially. And I want to make sure that everybody that's up on that stage explains how we can help the people in the audience win in this market. Because I know they're hearing that there's opportunity out there. And when there's blood in the water, there's more opportunity than any other time in history. And so right now, there's so much opportunity at the forefronts of our fingertips. How do you get your hands on it? What do you need to do? How do you get your fingertips on it to take advantage of it? And so that's really going to be the main focus and focal point of Real Estate Domination this year, is getting people to that point.
Well, we'll have it in the show notes. If people need to reach out, they just go to the website, right? Where can people sign up for this event, Domination?
Yeah, so we'll provide you guys with a link, and then you go to realestatedomination.co, and then, or you can go into the Jerome Maldonado website. My name's right in the chat here on the Zoom links. You can just take it out of the show notes and go to jeromemaldonado.com. Also, in our highlight reels and our whatever tree that they call for social media. I don't do all that. I have people that do it all, but in our link tree on social media, you can go to Jerome Maldonado on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and we have it in our highlight sections and all of our biographies and stuff. There's a link in there for Real Estate Domination 2022. So if you go to any of those, just click on it. It'll take you to our landing page where you can get tickets, register for the event, find out more about the event, who's going to be there, the lineup, everything.
You know, Jerome, you mentioned a word, and I've been waiting to ask you this, is how do you give back? Because I have a strong belief that you can't create the success that you've created without giving back. And giving back could be many different ways. And yet, when you mentioned this event, you said it's your way of giving back. There's a no sales. So how do you use generosity and giving in your life?
You know, not enough. Not enough. I don't think any of us do enough. I know my wife and I talk about this a lot. We don't do enough. I mean, hands down, Gucci, we don't do enough. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that. We try. We're getting to a place now where we try. I think that there's a place that I was always taught a drowning person can't help another drowning person. Well, Gucci, we haven't been drowning for a long time. We should have been giving back a lot sooner than we are now, and in a lot of bigger, different ways. We don't give enough. I need to work harder at that. I've partnered to make this, if you guys know who Cole Hatter is, I respect what he's done because he has an event called Thrive that he's no longer does. But he's coming in with me this year to help us make money matter in this event. So we are, people say, well, Jerome, why don't you do your own thing? I think sometimes we need other people to help us bring that out of us. I don't know that I know how I don't know that I knew how to make money matter enough to not bring somebody else in. And so I brought people in to help me with that. Like I said, we're all still growing. And so I myself am still growing in a fashion where I need help in that area to learn how to give back a little bit more because I've been selfishly building my own domain for so long and so hyper-focused. I've had a hard time picking my head up to realize that there's a lot more that needs to be done out there. And so I'm actively working on that now. And so we need to do more. We're doing some stuff down in Mexico. And I don't really publicize a lot of what we do. I think we give back in different ways. I like to believe that I do anyways. Maybe it's not in charities helping out certain different things, but I think we're giving back in different ways. So I'm still trying to find mine, right? Like that true thing that really drives me. There's a lot that I can do to help, and especially in the position that we're in right now. And so it's a really a focal point that I'm really trying to make right now. In all of this, including the event. And so I'm bringing in people that are also helping me in that arena as well.
Well, that goes right back to one of your big success lessons that you learned, right? Bringing people in to help you that you're not great at. Hey, I got a suggestion for you. First thing is I've worked hard on this, on giving, and here's something I want to share with you, right? First off, I think you're right. Giving doesn't necessarily mean money, right? So you're giving all the time, giving of your wisdom, giving of your time, giving of your knowledge, giving love just to people. Look at your family, right? So we're giving all the time. And here's what happened to me is just over about 12 years ago, I was kind of in your spot. I'm sitting here going, I want to give back, but at least for me, I wasn't making a whole lot of money at that time. And I'm like, I'll wait till I make a lot of money, then I can give back. And that was a false belief in my head. So finally, one day I said, holy shit, why not just start today? And start with future revenue, not past. So no guilt, right? So I just made a pact with myself. It's kind of like that moment that you had where you're just like, I'm changing, right? I said, every deal that comes in, I'm giving 10% to charity, just off the top. And guess what? I'm not even going to bring it in. I'm going to set up a foundation so the money goes directly into there. And it's just 10%, right? Guess what? Jerome, at first, that wasn't much. And over time now, but that has really changed. And my wife and I, we have the Glad to Be Here Foundation. Over the last 10 years, we now have sponsored or supported over 400 nonprofits around the world. These are people who've been through genocide. I'm going to Nepal here in 2 weeks with a doctor friend of mine. He's the head of ophthalmology at Stanford, and he's going to be doing cataract surgery, but we're going to go up on the mountain towards Everest, right? Doing these cataracts at like 12,000 feet, right? And so what's really happened is, we've been able to donate over $2 million to organizations around the world, but it's not the money. What's happened in that process is I've realized how many people are out there doing good works. You get exposed to so many cool people. And so it's just a thought. And I hope everybody who's listening, and it doesn't have to be 10%. It could be like $1. but just start today, you know, and it's amazing how it compounds. And you know that through investing, you know.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. I just share that with you. I know you're doing great work. I so appreciate this time together, brother. There's so many questions I still have for you, like what's good and bad debt, and how do you make it through, you know, what you're talking about, your event, make this recession into opportunity. Give us just 3 quick bullet points of the highest levels of maybe how to address that. You know, I know your event's going to go a lot deeper, but what are 2 or 3 things that you can share right now with me personally, but really our audience?
Yeah. So, you know, I'll kind of hit on the good debt, bad debt stuff. You know, when we're all young, we're in our 20s, we go and buy a bunch of dumb stuff. I did it, you know, the Range Rovers, the Harley Davidson motorcycles, the big lake houses, the boats, the jet skis, the whole 9 yards. And I realized that stuff is monetary. And what I did realize is that if I could still have all that, but I need to do it differently. And so on a higher level note, for those of you guys looking at this recession, this is the time right now to accumulate debt right now. 2008 scared me, ladies and gentlemen. I withdrew from this stuff a little bit. And I was like, I want to clear debt. I want to go down right now and just withdraw from all of the debt that I have. Right now is the time to get debt heavy. When we're in a recessionary market, it's acquiring assets and creating good debt. And the only way to create, there's only one type of good debt, and that's income producing debt. That's debt that affords you the ability to purchase assets that produce income for you. That's truly your money going to work for you. And I have multiple ways that I do that. I'm going to give you a couple key points here. Most real estate people say, don't invest in stocks. I tell real estate people, invest in stocks. Here's why. And this is just one example. I have a lot of these, but and it's just the way I live my life. I invest in stocks as a real estate person because it's a tool. It's a tool in my tool bag. And one of the tools that I utilize is how I have always tried to maximize my money and make my money work for me in multitudes of ways. And so I'll go in and I'll invest in only dividend producing stocks that have the payout in growth and dividends. I look at it like real estate, where the dividends are like my rental income. My returns are on the growth of it. That's your internal rate of return when you sell a property. And it's the same way I buy my assets. Okay. So I take that money and I draw upon it. So if I average 12% a year, which is about what I average, some years I made over 20% in the stock market. Some years I made as low as 1% in the stock market on really bad years. But over accumulation from 2001 to today, I average 12% a year. I take that money, I draw on it, and I still keep it in the stock market. I draw on the capital through the means of a loan that I pay 5.5% back, but I'm still making over 6% on my money. And then I take that money and I dump it into real estate. So I don't have to go to banks. I just draw from my own capital. I get a loan from my own money, and my money's still working for me. And then I go and dump it into a multi-million-dollar asset that allows me to take that money and make that asset grow. I get to invest my sweat equity into an asset. I take the bank and institutionals' money, and I take 80% of their money to go and buy myself a $100 million project. And I take this small marginal amount and I create the value through equity, not through even capital. And I take a small sliver of my money, buy a piece of land, and then I take sweat equity as my 20%. And then I take the bank's money, which is a big piece of that. And then I create an asset that for the rest of my life produces me income. Then when I finish that project, I pay my stocks back, put it right back in there. And then I let that money go back to work for me. And now I have a $100 million asset. And that's how I create wealth in my life. Now I take the rental income that is produced for the rest of my life. Now I buy dumb shit with that. So if you see me walking around with a $100,000 watch, it's because the dumb shit paid for. That's dumb shit, and it's paid for by stuff that's being created by businesses that create income for me. And so that's the difference between great, good assets and bad assets, or good assets and liabilities, and good debt versus bad debt. Bad debt being debt that you create for dumb cars and toys that don't produce income for you. Everything that you should get debt on should produce you income.
Wow. Let me try to unpack that. That was so quick and so powerful. So you're saying that your investments in stocks, what income you create off of that, you then say it again. I missed it.
So I leverage my own capital, right?
Yeah.
So I use my money as a bank. I use my own money as a bank. So what you're basically doing is creating your own internal financial institution, right? Because people pump out this money and they park it someplace. A lot of times they don't even know where to park it. So they buy liabilities with it. So instead of buying liabilities, one thing I started doing is I started buying stocks, because early years, I just heard diversification was the way to go, right? So I started diversifying my income. I tried doing it by the means of day trading, trading on margin, doing that stuff. 9/11 hit. We didn't get hit in the stock market that hard in 9/11 until March of 2002. When 9/11 hit, stocks didn't really plummet until March of the next year. March of the next year, I got railed. I mean, I got leveled, hands down. I got all my margin accounts got shut down. I lost all the money I'd made in the stock market, went back down to zero. So in 2002, actually, I got me a broker and said, okay, I'm done with this stuff. Got me a Merrill Lynch dude and put him to work. Now, over time, by accident, I've learned this stuff. And I, through my asset protection attorneys, you create a trust, put your stocks in a trust. And then I go to work and I withdraw. I take my money out of my stocks. Now I have a rule, right? There's a rule. I will not buy a stock that doesn't pay me dividends because I want it to earn me revenue two ways. When it goes up, and I want it to earn me revenue, whether it goes up or not. So if it's dividend paying, you make money whether the stock goes up or down. You get dividends on your money no matter what. So, and I like that. So my money's making me money. And so I buy big companies. That's a must. I only buy big companies. I don't buy small companies. So I'm buying like ExxonMobil, Walmart, GM, big companies. And sometimes I trade amongst some of the bigger companies that I buy, but I buy big companies that can afford those dividend payouts. And then I take that capital and I withdraw on it. So when I go in and I buy an asset, for sake of example, and I'm doing a project, I'll go in and buy a piece of land that might cost me $2 to $3 million. Okay, that piece of land, I value it based on how many units I can put on that piece of land. So if that $3 million can produce me 200 units of apartments, the value of that apartment complex, like my stocks, right? Now, if I value that at $300,000 per door, now I got me an asset that's worth anywhere between, depending on the real value of income, between $60 to $75 million is its value. Okay, now the banks aren't going to lend you that money, but that project might cost me $45 to $50 million to build. So what I do is I go in and I pay for the land and I take a loan out from my money, or I raise capital, but I'll take a loan out from my own company. Sometimes I'll buy the land with my own money that I take from the stock market. Then I'll raise capital, put the money back in there, take my money back out, put it back in the stock market. But it's a tool. It's a banking tool where I don't have to ask nobody. I don't have to go through underwriting. I'm working on speed and agility now. And so I take my money, I purchase an asset that most people can't purchase on the drop of a dime because they don't have liquidity. My money, although it's not liquidity, doesn't have liquidity, I can pull it with liquidity on a loan from my stocks without affecting any of my stocks. It's still earning me income. It's still making my dividends, but I take it and withdraw it on a loan. Now I take that money and I put it to work. Then as soon as I can exit
the loan on the stocks, because these are your stocks, right? So
yes.
When you say you take a loan on your own stocks, what is that? That I don't understand.
Yeah. So if you go Merrill Lynch or you go to JP Morgan, you go in and based on how much money you have in there in the stock market, they'll give you a percentage of it. So let's say you have $7 million in the stock market, they might allow you to withdraw up to 5 million of that, and then they charge you an interest rate on withdrawing on your money. Yeah, it's a line of credit.
But you still own the stocks. You still
own the stocks.
So you're getting a loan from Merrill Lynch then, basically.
Yeah. And you could do this with life insurance too. I got life insurance policies that I have with Northwestern Mutual, with Modern Woodsman, and I do the same thing. So you create this cash value that you have on your life insurance policies, these $1 million life insurance policies that I bought when I was in my 20s, and they create cash value. And on that cash value, you can withdraw on them in the form of a loan and pay back an interest rate to Northwestern Mutual, whoever, at a discounted rate. And so you go in and you can withdraw your money, but it doesn't affect my life insurance policy. I don't cancel them. I'm not taking my cash value. I'm just utilizing it temporary. And then I put the money back in there. So I use it as a tool and to go create more assets. And so I'm double dipping with my money. My money's revolving two different ways all the time. So my money's without withdrawing. And then I'm not, and another thing that it's doing that most people don't realize is I'm creating no tax liability for myself, because the second you sell a stock, to go buy an asset.
Right.
Now you create tax liability. What this does is it prevents the tax liability. You still own the asset. You still own it. You haven't sold it. You're just taking it on a loan. So, I mean, this is like I could spend a day just teaching people this one aspect of stuff, but it's a huge tool. It's a huge little bonus deal for you guys there on how we do things. And it's how to position money to utilize it as a tool.
Jerome, man, you just excited me. I hope to someday be at one of your events, if not this year. Okay, we got to figure that out. And I love the lessons you're giving. I mean, I'm already excited. I'm like leaning in, going, "Shit, I want to learn more. I want to learn more. I want to learn more." And that's why you give so much. But for time wise, we can't. There's so many things I want to learn from you, brother. Let's stay in touch. But to back to the audience. You mentioned mentors, right? And I can tell you live your life by certain guidelines or certain, I don't know if call them values, call them, maybe they're even a mantra or a saying that you heard, something that you live your life by. What's one or two of those that you can share with the audience here?
I don't know that there's a single statement or mantra that I live my life by. One of the biggest mantras is live life, like in itself, like just live life. Like we got one shot here, guys. I mean, hands down, you literally, like, people don't stop to think about this. I think people really honestly, they think that they're going to live forever. And they live that way. They live like they're going to live forever. We're not, man. We're not going to live forever. Live life, man. Life's short. Like, I'm looking at it now as I'm pushing into my 50s, and I'm like, damn, life's fast. This is crazy. I just can't believe how fast my kids have grown up and how fast life is going by. And so I'm sitting back and I go, man, live life. Like, honestly, just live life. Stop being scared. I use this on stage a lot. I tell people, look, if today you created a facade, a wall in front of you where nobody in the external world could see your failures, and like you could just do anything, like anything that you could do, and nobody's going to condemn you. Would you try more? Would you do more? Would you do it without reservation? And 100% of the time, the answer is yes, I would. And I said, when you start living life like that, that's when you'll succeed. I tell people, because so many times people stop living because they care so much about what other people around them think of them or what they're doing. And I'm going, man, it's such a limited belief. You got to stop caring, because the people that really love you, if they really love you, they don't care. They're going to love you no matter what. The people who judge you and condemn you, they didn't really love you anyways. Don't worry about those people. And it's hard. That's hard for people to give up. And I just tell people, live life, man. Like, it's short. Live life.
Man, I love it. I'm thinking of, and you're so passionate about it. I'm thinking of that song, country music song, "Live Life like if you're dying," right? The idea of with no barriers, right? With no limitations. I have a saying myself, and it's live life in all its fullness. And I think that's what you're talking about, brother. To me, that's what glad to be here means. Glad to be here means, be grateful for every precious moment, live it in every way you can. Like you said, they're short. You never know. But be grateful for the little things. That's what glad to be here means to me. As we wrap this up, what does glad to be here mean to you?
Glad to be here means to me that, I mean, I'm truly glad to be here every morning. I tell my kids, my daughter specifically, because she's not a morning person. And now that they're getting older, their true personalities come to the table, right? And she's a little bit more cranky in the morning, and I just turn and tell her, hey, look at that cross and just thank God that you're here, man. Just because, yeah, I mean, we're truly blessed to be here each day. And don't be angry, man. Don't leave the house mad. Don't be so frustrated. It's just your hair, or it's just a ponytail, or it's just, a bowl of cereal, or whatever it is. It's whatever craziness in your life is that is making you react. And I'm guilty of it too, right? Yeah. My wife has to tell me, she's like, you're up here, come back down here. You're here. So if I'm on a call and I'm like ranting, she's like, you're up. She goes like this to me. That means you're up here, come down here. So glad to be here just means take every moment and just reflect on being appreciative and grateful and blessed that that we're here and we got another day of life to go out and make a difference in our own lives and somebody else's life.
Thanks, bro. Well, you're doing it. You're doing it like crazy. I want to just end it here, but I realized there was something you and I talked about, dyslexia, and how that, and my partner, And we talked about that beforehand, and how you've struggled with that, but it's actually made a difference. Is there anything you want to share on that? Because I want to give you the opportunity. I know you can help a lot of people.
Yeah. You know, when I made mention to Sugar that that when I get up on stage and I mention that I have dyslexia, it draws a whole different crowd, and I'm always pulled aside. And someone thanks me for bringing that up. School was hard for me, Gucci. It was hard for me. I struggled through school, man. It wasn't an easy task. I was the dumb kid that got pulled to the reading van, to the reading room during a lot of what was going on in school. I was always considered to be the less, not the intelligent kid in class. And I had to work at it. And my parents didn't test me for dyslexia. I didn't know until I came back to college, and that story I told you guys. And I decided I was going to get straight A's. I thought to myself, man, there's something wrong. Like, I need to get tested. Like, you know, this is not normal. You know, what I go through, what I struggle with. There was people, I was taking tests, man. And there was guys that were from Mexico that only spoke Spanish, taking English tests, that were finishing exams faster than I was, you know? And I'm like, damn, they don't even speak English and they're finishing the damn exam faster than me. That's ridiculous, you know? Like, and so I'm sitting back going, this is not normal shit, right? So I just, you know, I went and got tested because I needed to, for my own well-being. And I got the results 4 weeks before I graduated and walked the line for my college degree. And they said, you have dyslexia. And I said, I knew I had something. And they said, you can have more time for any of your exams now. I said, I don't need them. I got final exams and I don't need them anymore. But thank you for letting me know what was really wrong. And I just battled from dyslexia my whole life. And I knew I did inside. My parents, we didn't get Medicaid anything as kids. We didn't have ADD and all this other stuff that people, peanut allergies and all this other stuff that people are diagnosed with today, you know. We just lived, right? And we didn't get diagnosed with stuff. And so if you're one of those kids that was never diagnosed, or you were diagnosed and are struggling through that stuff, just know that there's a means through it. I had a self-psychiatrist. I had to be a self-psychiatrist to myself to get myself through it. And I had to be strong. There's avenues for you out there, but just know that some of the most successful people on this earth, including like Elon Musk and a lot of others, are dyslexic. And if you are, just know you're okay. In fact, if that's the only abnormality that I have to deal with, I'll take it.
Well, and what I think you've done is not only take it, you've used it as an advantage somehow, and look at where you are now. It's unbelievable, brother. Hey, I want to say you're an angel. Okay, we're wrapping. You're an angel to me, to people out there. Thank you for this time. Thanks for sharing from your heart. And your life is an inspiration. Keep it up. Good luck at Domination. We got to be together at some point. And with that, Jerome, man, kick ass. I think you're going to be Bone. I like Bone. Bone is tough, man. I'm like going with Bone. All right, brother. Glad to be here.
My man, Gucci, love you, bro. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate you giving me your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Glad to be here.